This podcast was brought to you by CNET.nl. This must you see.
Will you please listen up to what I have to say? Cause we're in for some old-fashioned wrestling today. Not the violent, oily opposer-ish kind, but the kind that involves pins and thumbs you will find. Cause it's thumb wrestling time. Yes, it's thumb wrestling time. So we will discuss pros and cons, faults and pluses of all your favorite movies. And we will ponder the merits of cinema in this WrestleMania. Cause it's thumb wrestling time. Yes, it's thumb wrestling time. Yes, it's thumb wrestling time.
Hello, pot people. Wow! That is from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This is a brand new episode of Thumb Wrestling, the podcast in which two opinions about one certain movie melt together into fun film chat. I'm your host, Ruud de 20ste eeuwse Vos, and you are listening to episode 118. Now, for Dutch listeners, we have some unfinished business because 3 weeks ago, we played a fantasy film festival. I did so with Niels Timmer and Narana Kober from the Film Fans podcast. We each compiled a list picking our favorites from the top 5 box office movies of the last 6 years. And you are still waiting for a result because you got to choose a winner who had the best list of draft picks. And I'm quite surprised by this, but I won. I got 15 votes, Niels got 12 and Narana got 10. So I guess that my strategy, which I thought would be a disaster, paid off in the end. Thanks again to Niels and Narana for playing and thank you for voting. But that's 2 episodes back. Let's talk about this one, episode 118. I recorded this one on Skype on the 28th of February with Scottish comedian, radio host and professional geek Rik Carranza. I met him years back on the Edinburgh Fringe through a mutual acquaintance. I went to see his show, we grabbed a beer afterwards, had a chat, and it was a lot of fun. And a couple of years later, I went to see his new show, I'm a Fan. And he also did a comedy panel show called Star Trek vs. Star Wars. And both of those made clear he'd really found his groove. Since then, he's been a host at loads of conventions. His panel show spun off into Clash of Fandoms, also an online edition of that. And by now, he's also a radio host on Pure Radio Scotland, where from Sunday to Thursday, he hosts a music show. And of course, inevitably, he's also a podcaster. He co-hosts the Geekatorium with Matt Blair. And as you'll hear, it wasn't very easy to find a movie we disagreed on, but we did. We did find one. It's 21 Jump Street, starring Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum and directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. And of course, a comedic movie remake of the TV show of the same name, which launched the career of Johnny Depp. It's the story of Schmidt and Jenko, who were at opposite sides of the spectrum when they were in high school together, but form an unlikely symbiosis at the police academy. Once they're on the streets, they mess up their first arrest by being really immature and not remembering the Miranda rights. So their chief figures, let's weaponize this immaturity and send them as undercover cops to high school. They have to find the supplier for a drug called HFS. Holy fucking shit. Because of circumstances, Schmidt finds himself with the popular kids, even though he's traditionally the nerd, and Jenko, who was a jock, finds himself with the science geeks. Classic role reversal. They get into all kinds of inappropriate stuff. Parties, drugs, high school girls, and a teacher. And in the end, they learn that the drug ring is run by the gym teacher together with the bikers they try to arrest in the park at the start of the movie. Some of whom are undercover DEA agents. Wow. Jenko and Schmidt must set aside their difference to win a shootout in a back room of the school prom and save the day. Which they do, and shoot the gym teacher in the dick. And after this success, the police chief decides to send them to university. End of movie. Rik really likes this movie. I don't particularly. And the whole why and how, you'll hear now.
3, 2, 1, fight!
Do you know what this movie is to me? This was the longest time trying to find a movie between us that we actually disagreed on. I'm going to start off by stating that you sent me a list of movies that you enjoy. A very, very long list of movies. I went through them going, God damn, we actually have the same taste. It took a long time for me to go through it. And I couldn't find one. And then you came back to me going, hey, well, why don't you, do you want to defend Star Trek Into Darkness? And I went, I can't defend the indefensible. How can you defend that movie? There's nothing wrong. But then suddenly we fell upon this one movie, which is 21 Jump Street. Now, 21 Jump Street for me was a movie that I didn't actually see in the cinema. I actually had, I didn't actually have, it just kind of flew by me. 2012, I mean, God, those were hedonistic days, 2012, when you look back compared to nowadays. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had it all back then. We were in Europe back then. We had tomatoes. That's what we had back then. Now we don't even have peppers on our shelves.
You don't have tomatoes and peppers anymore.
Yeah, they're rationed in the UK now. We're only allowed to buy a certain amount in the shops. It's insane. We could afford our electricity and our heating. We had all these things that were going for us back in 2012. And in 2012, this little movie came out, which was a remake of a TV show. And again, a TV show that, again, I was kind of familiar with.
Had you ever watched it?
I knew it as a vehicle for Johnny Depp back in the day. And I remember watching a bit of it, a couple of episodes of it, and I thought, hey, this is okay. It's not brilliant, but it's okay. It was fine, right? It's one of the, when actors early work and you go, oh yeah, that's okay. I can see why they went on to something else, but this was quite good. I quite enjoyed it, it was fine. But the movie for me, 21 Jump Street, I didn't know much about it. I didn't know much. I didn't know. The only thing I knew about it was Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum. I was like, they cannot work together. I knew no idea about Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. This is their directorial debut. This is their live action debut specifically. Yeah. And I didn't really know much. I mean, it's insane. And so I watched this movie. This movie bypassed me in the cinema, and I ended up watching it on a whim. A friend recommended it to me and said, this is the type of thing that you would enjoy. And so I watched it, and I went, God damn, you're right. I loved it. I loved it. Do you know what I miss in comedies these days is, in movie comedies these days, is we don't have satire movies the way that we used to have satire movies. And I get a lot of it is to do with the subject matter. And don't get me wrong, a lot of the satire movies that I loved back in the day have not aged well in the slightest. And I'm talking about your Airplanes, your Naked Guns, your Hot Shots, right?
I can still watch them well enough and I can separate the stuff that hasn't aged well. And
100%. They are all fantastic films, but if you were to make them in today's environment, they would not work.
Yeah. The talking jive joke wouldn't fly, pun intended.
Naked Gun 33 and a third transsexual sort of transphobic stuff is very, very bad. Yeah. This is the thing. And I used to love those types of satires, especially I remember growing up watching Hot Shots. And for me, that was like the last Hot Shots Part 2 for me was like the last great satire movie that existed, when movies made satires. And I remember the last time I felt like the way about, and I remember going to cinema in 2008 and seeing Tropic Thunder. And I was like, oh my God, the satire movie is back. I really enjoyed that. And then I watched 21 Jump Street. And 21 Jump Street is a much cleverer satire movie than I ever thought it could be. Tropic Thunder's very on the nose. Like I watch back now and I go, I enjoy it, but it's very on the nose.
Yeah.
Whereas 21 Jump Street is a little bit subtler because it's satire against teen movies. It absolutely rips into the things like, like She's All That and Never Been Kissed and all these things where it's undercover back in high school. It's very clever like that. But it also satirizes itself as the movie goes on. And I'm going to pull the sequel into this as well because I think actually 21 and 22 Jump Street as a whole complete package are brilliant to watch because 22 Jump Street takes the satirization that it does of itself and just goes that step further and actually goes, hey, we know we're just a movie that's dumb.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I think like that's such a hallmark of Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. It
is. They continuously do this sort of very meta stuff with the thing that they are trying to put in a movie and
100%. Make
very, very stupid jokes with it, but at least dumb jokes with it. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
In a way that works, I would say, even though it doesn't
100%.
appeal to me.
Yeah, okay.
Under which circumstances did you watch 21 Jump Street the first time?
When I saw this movie for the first time.
Oh, so I think I watched. I'm trying to remember 2012. It was DVD. Oh my god, it was DVD. Do you remember those days?
I worked in a video store in 2012, so then I was up to my nose in DVDs.
So I used to have there's a group of friends of us who used to watch tons of movies together. We always used to have movie nights and everything like that. 2012, I remember doing the Avengers marathon before the movie actually came out. We sat down and it was all DVDs and it was amazing. I used to have friends that we used to do DVD exchanges with because back in the day I used to have you can't see it now on this wall behind me, but this wall behind me at one point probably would have been covered in DVDs. Nothing but I can see on the wall behind you.
Yeah,
you've still got them. I'm kind of jealous of you. I got rid of all mine and I bought in. I went all in digital, but I kind of miss. There's something about DVDs, videos. There's something special about being opening up the packaging.
I like physical media.
Yeah, the that satisfying click as you open it up, and
the smell of cheap plastic.
Oh, it's so good, but it's just, and even like the attention to detail on the artwork on the thing, and being able to buy different copies. I remember one of the just to go off tangent on it for a second, but I remember when I was a kid, like my favorite movie of all time is Jurassic Park. It's a movie that changed cinema making forever, and it was a movie that currently looks better today than Jurassic World looks now.
Yeah.
Like, it's aged better than the movies that were made after it, that were based on it.
I would argue that it looks better than Jurassic World has ever looked.
I 100% agree with you. But I think like one of my favorite things is that when the movie came out, I think I bought about 4 copies of that film because every copy I bought had a different type of case on it. Oh yeah. And it was all videos. So like this is when I was like 12, 13. It came out on video. And it was like the first one was just your standard video case with like the Jurassic Park poster on the front of it.
Yeah.
Then I got one that was like a fossil. So it looked like it was inside a fossil. The next one I bought looked like it was in like a briefcase that was designed to hold DNA capsules. Yeah. So like it was like all these different versions of the... And
the case that Nedry uses to smuggle them out.
100%. Yeah. So it's kind of like I missed that with physical media. So yeah, when I watched 21 Jump Street, it was all on DVD. And it was a result of a DVD exchange. So yeah, absolutely love that.
And you watch it just by yourself?
Yeah, just by myself.
Yeah, probably same for me.
I'm also one of these people. I'm terrible when I watch movies. I have 2 modes when I'm watching a movie, which is absolute silence or scrolling through the internet while I'm watching it to find out, who's that actor in? Now, the second part is when the ADHD kicks in. So the other bit is like, so basically I can either hyper focus on it or I'm distracted by everything around me. And this was one of these movies that I was like, it's been recommended to me. I also know with comedy, it's really important to watch a comedy. You know, I think people...
You need to get into a certain vibe, a certain mood to
100%. And also with a lot of comedies, and especially with like when you're talking about something like this where it's satire, there's a lot going on visually, but there's a lot going on with the writing as well. So not only do you have to be watching, you have to be listening to find out what's going on. And again, a lot of comedy as well, as you know from doing stand-up, is about timing as well. For me, watching a comedy is like, unless I've watched it a million times and I know where the jokes are coming, the first time I watch a comedy, I don't want to be distracted. I just want to watch it so I can get it, you know?
Yeah, just get into the whole atmosphere of it, the flow, just consume it, not tear it apart and see where all the jokes are and why everything 100%. Lands or doesn't land or whatever, but just not to sort of step out of yourself and just have your body react to it.
Yeah,
a very fluid thing. Yeah, and that's what didn't happen with me when I first watched it.
Okay,
and neither did it the second time I watched it.
Oh, I'm disappointed to hear that.
I still, even the second time I watched it, I hope that now I know what it is, maybe I can give myself to it. But one sign that it wouldn't happen was that I also gave 22 Jump Street a shot last year, and that also didn't do it for me. Even though I see what is clever about it. I see it.
Yeah.
You know, I see what the layers are, and I think, yeah, these thoughts are kind of good and stuff like that. But I just don't get into the vibe of this. And I do not step out of myself, but just keep thinking about what is happening in front of me in a way that just gets in the way of the comedy. So even when jokes start happening where I think, oh, this is quite good, is me thinking, oh, this is quite good, and not me going, ha, 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 ha.
Right. Got you. Do you think there's a bit of over-analyzation going on?
It starts because I just don't get into it.
I'm serious, and don't call me Shirley.
And I think a big thing for me is that I just don't like Jenko and Schmidt, the two leads. I don't care for them at all.
Okay.
For me, they don't have a dynamic in between themselves, even though you do get that one of them is more the nerdy guy, the bookish type, and the other one is more the jock, the physical guy and the cool guy, right? So there's a dynamic in between them. But the thing that they could differ most in is the thing where they are exactly the same, and that is that they are just a bunch of assholes.
Okay.
I don't like them. I think they are a bad hang. There is a point in the movie where I'm going, finally, I'm starting to feel something for one of these two guys, and it's Jenko. When he starts being vulnerable, Channing Tatum starts being vulnerable, he does that really well.
He does.
And I finally think there, like, oh, where has this been the entire movie? Because finally there is something that I can tune into. But it's sort of too late, because you only have half an hour of the movie to go before it's all finished, and it's gone for me.
You see, the thing is, I liked the fact that they were assholes. I agree with you. I actually agree with you on that. They weren't likable people. They were the worst versions of the jock and the nerd that you can get. And I obviously think that's done deliberately. You know, it's like there's the toxic masculinity versus incel culture basically coming together. That's what I think what we had in these two characters. They were the worst type of people. And I think for me, it's like, there's a lot of comedies that I like these days where I find that I'll give you an example. Community. Everyone's an asshole in Community. Every single one of those characters is an asshole. Yeah. If you were to hang out with them and meet them in real life, you'd be like, Jesus, you're a dick. Yeah. Like, you know, all of them are self-centered. They've all got their own problems and flaws. But, you know, you endear themselves to them. And I'm so the opposite of you. I actually found them, like, endearing. I love the fact that there was this switch. And it's that first scene when they go back to school where it's as simple as the backpack. And I remember when I watched the movie, it was the backpack for me that I was like, oh my God, I'm the cool kid now, right? Because I was the kid at school who wore my backpack on two shoulders. Why would you have two shoulders? Why would you have, like, so like, I never understood why would you carry it on one shoulder when you've got two handles, right?
So you can use it twice as long. It just is an endurance thing.
Oh, I see. You see, I never thought like that.
Being
I just
economic.
thought like there were two there, that, you know. But, you know, so for me, it was spread the weight. That's what it's all about. So I remember that, like, I loved that scene because it was like, I guess I identified with like the whole sort of like, oh, the school's changed and you can be the cool kid now because you wear it. And it was really funny in real life. now as well, I go around and everyone does that. Everyone has the two shoulders now, even the kids at school. But I remember watching that. I guess I identified with it, and I found it very funny. You know, obviously, Jenko walks in, as you say, Channing Tatum. He's still doing the single shoulder thing, and everyone's like, "Mate, why? You're not the cool kid anymore." And I enjoyed, like, he got called out straight away, and then he goes through the journey of the film, sort of finding his more sensitive side. But I enjoyed Schmidt becoming even more of an asshole and then realizing that he's actually just as bad, you know? I think, like, for me, it's like, I actually like the idea that both of them were assholes. And they didn't realize they were assholes. They were the type of guys who blamed everything. Like, look at the when they have the first meeting with Ice Cube, Dixon, and they were like, "Did no one tell you this was undercover?" And the first thing Schmidt's like, "Well, I didn't get a memo. No one told us." It's like instantly they're blaming everyone else around them. Everything is about blaming everyone else.
And every time they get called out for something, he starts trying to justify their way instead of looking at himself.
Yeah, and exactly. And I think that's an interesting thing. And as the movie goes on, like, I think they start to learn a little bit more about, you know, that they are assholes. I think you're right. I think, you know, Jenko definitely goes through more of a journey with that. And it does come very late in the movie. But I don't know. I liked that they're assholes. I really, really did. I think it works for me.
For a part, I sort of understand it because the movie hinges a lot on the fact that they are really immature, so they can pass for high school students, like just looking young, like they played it with Johnny Depp back in the day. He has a baby face, so he does pass for a high school student. It isn't enough, so they bring in attitude as well here, which is a very clever way of doing it. I especially like the way they are called out for that by Ice Cube, who goes that you would fit right in here, stuff like that.
100%, yep.
But it also makes them very obnoxious. And maybe I've become even more self-aware about liking certain types of immature characters and less some other types. Okay. And if they are immature and likable, then I'm on board so quickly because I'm a bit of a man-child myself.
Yep.
And when I don't like them, they both feel like their own type of bully to me, in a way. And then they just lose me very quickly.
I agree with you, like man-child thing. I mean, I'm sitting here wearing a Game of Thrones Pokemon crossover t-shirt. You can look at the shelves behind me and see various models and collectibles that I've got. And, you know, where I'm currently on a podcast talking about movies. It's the movie, like, but I think that's why I really like 21 Jump Street, because it is a movie about Arrested Development, the immature side of them. And I think it's, I do get what you're saying about, like, the bully aspect of it, but it works for me because I identified so much with that sort of, like, haven't grown up since high school thing. I think what it is as well, I think there's correct me if I'm wrong with your thinking here. Like, I'm just sort of like trying to extrapolate your thinking here with the bully aspect of it, because there's two types of immaturity. Well, there's lots of types of immaturity. But I think there's two main types coming out of high school. There are the kids like ourselves, like myself, who I'm still into my geeky stuff. I'm still into my Star Trek, my Star Wars, my Marvel stuff. I get very nerdy about comic books and things like that. And I'm very passionate about those things. And that can be seen as a sign of immaturity. I would say the fact that I bought a house and I have a child and I've held down stable jobs, I'm not immature. I just have geeky passions. But then there's another immaturity side as well. And that is the immaturity of... because like there's a saying I hate, and I'm never ever going to say this to my son because I don't believe in it. But you can instantly tell the type of person who says it. High school are your best years, right? You know, when an older person says to you, "High school are your best years," it's because they peaked at high school. That's all they remember is how good high school was and everything's like. But I think like that's the two characters that we've got. You know, those two immaturities are the two characters that we've got. You know, Schmidt is that very much like, I'm a nerd, I'm still a nerd, and I'm trying to make the best of things right now. And of course, Jenko is that in school, I was a jock, I was successful, high school were the best days of my life.
Yeah, but they sort of get together in the thing where they both really want to be in a cop movie. And even though they are in a cop movie, within the movie, of course, they're not in a cop movie. That gets taken apart as well.
Yeah. But it's, oh my God, I'm trying to justify my love of this movie is you've got me on the ropes here, and I love it so much.
Okay.
I think what I love about it is that, right, so first of all, it is a dumb comedy. It is a very dumb, you touched on it further, it's very dumb jokes. But coming down to it, it's
dumb
like,
jokes are fine. I like dumb jokes. There's nothing wrong with dumb jokes.
But we're talking about characters here, and this is what we're getting into. And I think, like, for me, like, those two characters do represent those two sides of characters that have gone through high school. One is wasn't high school the best years of your life? High school is the best years of your life. That's your Jenko. The other one is high school was this time in my life, but I'm a nerd and It's Schmidt. And like, obviously, if you want to base it down, like, I should identify with Schmidt more, like, you know, and I do. I probably identify with Schmidt a little.
I want to
more.
identify with Schmidt. He's closer to me.
Yeah, exactly. Funnily enough, I actually prefer Jenko as a character. As you said, as you very well put it, he actually goes through a better growth curve through the movie than Schmidt does. It's actually quite upsetting for me watching. This is one of the things I will give you, is that it is actually upsetting to me watching Schmidt sort of succumb to being the popular kid and being used in the way that he does, and becoming even more of an asshole through the movie. And you're just like, oh, dude. And it's interesting because it's easily done when you've not been the popular kid. When you're suddenly the popular kid, it can be quite easy to go down that route. Well, I guess what I'm saying is I get what you're saying, but I don't have a problem with it.
No, that's cool. That's cool. I don't mind anyone not having a problem with it. Just go ahead. It's fine. Enjoy this movie, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually think it's interesting. I think like, if I was to agree with you on any point, it would be that it is quite depressing seeing Schmidt go through that journey quite easily.
If there is a thing to even go so far that Schmidt at the start of the movie, we see him in 2005 when he's dressed like slightly chubbier Eminem, which I was at that point in time. I dyed my hair blonde and listened to the Marshall Mathers LP and the Slim Shady LP. I really dug that shit, and I will stand by me liking that back in the day and having lots of fun. Because actually, Eminem, he made comedy albums. No one realized it. They are really good comedy albums.
100%.
But he's not really known for that. That's not what people say. He's immature, blah, 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 that sort of thing. But it doesn't matter. He was very good also in a satiric way.
Yeah.
Looking 100%. At himself, stuff like that. Anyway, the thing with Schmidt, why I don't like him probably, is that he is the geeky character, but he never is fine with that. He always wants to be like the jock character, like a cool guy and stuff like that. So that's why he behaves in a certain way that I never get into. So he's already enjoying trying to be the cool guy too much before he even gets a chance to.
Got you.
That's where there is not really a growth thing. There's not like a thing like he's changed. You said that he becomes more of an asshole, and I'm not really convinced of that. It is just more of a let out for his dicgishness.
Asshole.
Yeah, exactly. He can vent it a bit more than he did before.
You see, I don't know. I found him quite sympathetic at the beginning of the movie.
Okay.
And I identified with sort of the issues of like the bullying and the being left out and things that.
I can sympathize with that. Yeah.
I sympathize with that. I do want to come back to my point though earlier on. I do think that both those characters are stereotypes, and it's that whole meta movie thing that happens, the meta satire, that they're satirizing the movie itself as it's happening. Is Ice Cube pointing out, be your stereotypes, you know, play on your stereotypes, and pointing out the stereotypes as they go through for those jokes alone. But on a bigger scale, like, they are stereotypes themselves. As I said, like, let's go straight back to it. Jenko is toxic masculinity. Schmidt is incel culture. Yeah. Right? That's literally what those two characters are. And they are satirizing those two things as they go through and the journeys they come out.
And it's even more fun because they get launched into the different paths, because Jenko doesn't want to be called Doug. He wants to be called Brad.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's a fun thing that it works on a story level.
Wax on,
This movie to me was the one where I went, do you know what? God damn, Channing Tatum's a good actor.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, I didn't realize it until I watched this movie. Like, I've always dismissed him as like the Magic Mike type style character and like that type.
I've never seen Magic Mike, but I want to watch it.
And neither have I, but because of him, I want to watch it as well. Channing Tatum for me, this movie was the first one I went, damn, he's actually really good. Like him in Hail Caesar as well is phenomenal. He's phenomenal in Hail Caesar. But I watched this movie going, oh god damn, Channing Tatum is funny. And he's got depth, and he's got a lot going for him because he does the whole toxic masculinity thing. So he starts off as, I'm the toxic jock. I am, the popular kid at school. Look at the way he takes down, like the takedown of the drug lords at the drug deal at the beginning, and when they're bicycle cops.
Yeah.
And his whole thing is the over the top, diving through the air, and then can't remember the Miranda rights because he's so concentrated on being the cool, top.
And he starts humping the guy he's just arrested.
Yes, exactly. Everything he does is toxic masculinity.
It's libido coming out and having a way.
Right? And then he goes back to, he gets sent into 21 Jump Street because A, he looks young, and B, he's dumb as shit. Right. And it works. And he goes back to school and he's getting called out on his toxicity all the way through from the very beginning. He's sort of like, when he punches the kid and he's like, did you punch him because he's gay? No, I punched him and then he turned out to be gay. No, I was gay when you punched me. Yeah. And it's and a hilarious thing. And it's like, suddenly he's actually being called out for all the toxicity and all the bad things that he's doing. And this is the beauty of this movie, is that it's not done in a obvious way. It's not done in a sort of like, you're toxic, like that way. It's like, no, it's every single thing that he does is slowly called out.
Yeah.
And as he goes through the movie, he's sort of like realizing, crap, it's like you can see him sort of working out. Oh, the way that I acted in school, that doesn't work anymore. And it's very slow. It's very slow, as you say. It doesn't come out till halfway, to the last half hour of the movie.
Yeah.
But then it's then him suddenly getting more interested in the grades, in the sort of the more nerdy aspects of school, and like suddenly
because
going
he's learned if you're a nerd, you can blow stuff up. So it still taps into a certain thing of his toxic masculinity, but in a sort of a positive way to channel.
More of a productive way that he's learning. And it's quite nice to show that actually, I think it's actually quite nice. It shows that there is a way to overcome that toxic masculinity by embracing other parts of you and realizing that you probably have more interests and more in common with the nerdy things than you realize. And I like that a lot. And that's why I like his journey is more satisfying in a way. Schmidt's journey, I'm going to concede Schmidt. I'm going to concede that point. He is incel culture. It's the whole, I was a nerd in high school. I didn't get what I wanted. I should have been popular. Why wasn't I popular? I deserve to be popular. I like these things that these jocks like, so they should be liking me as well. And a lot of it is deserved. He's got this sort of, not deserved. A lot of it is this whole, I deserve this thing because of this. And you're right. I'm going to give it to you. You're right. He never quite learns otherwise.
But if that doesn't bother you, that isn't bad. It's not. You can enjoy it because there are plenty of jokes with him being the butt of 100%. The joke of that.
And actually, what's quite nice is he does get called out because it's what's quite nice is that in the movie, just through the writing and through the characterization and stuff like that, is that you see Jenko go on a much deeper journey than Schmidt ever does. And even in the second movie, Schmidt is still an asshole. He ends up sleeping with Dixon's daughter and stuff like that. And he's called out for it. He's like, what are you doing? I think it's funny because I should, and as you said as well, and I actually agree with you. I both of us, we should be identifying and sympathizing more with Schmidt. But I think the reason that we don't is because Schmidt represents the side of nerd and geek culture that I don't like. There's definitely a toxic element to it, and he represents all of that.
Do you think that Schmidt would leap onto a McDonald's counter and yell for Szechuan sauce?
Oh, 100%. 100% I could see that happening. I could 100% see him doing that. He is definitely the worst of Rick and Morty culture. I still like it. I still like his character. You know, and I think like the two of them work together because they are such opposites. And I do agree with you. I'm gonna have to concede the point and agree with you. He's an asshole.
Okay then, listen. Let's not get caught. Let's keep going. Go!
How do you like Brie Larson's portrayal of Molly in this film?
I like everything that Brie Larson does, and there's no exception of this. Is this her best role? No, I've got to say no. I've got to say it's not her best role. But I actually like what she does in this film.
I like those bits where every time that Schmitty says something shitty, she calls him out for it.
But that's,
and makes a joke out of it. She's really funny.
Yeah, but that's the thing. And this comes back to what I was saying about this film, about the toxic masculinity, the toxic culture of these two characters, is that they are called out. Like everything that they've done that was toxic in the past and now is toxic, that they consider normal, is called out. And I do, I absolutely agree with you. I like that. So I know is it her best role? No, but it's actually a really good role that she does. So.
The thing why I don't think it's her best role is that she gets a bit of character assassination when she ends up on prom and has taken the drugs, which she has disavowed the entire movie.
Yeah.
And why? Because Schmidt being a dick got to her? Because when he showed up to Peter Pan to get the role back, even though the understudy was already doing it, that's where she got so mad and so much in the dumps, so disappointed in him, that suddenly she is taking HFS.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you on that one. It's like I enjoyed, as I said, the calling out thing was great. She's got a sense of humor. This
and I even understand why they put her on that drugs, because it's a very good thing in the end scene to have her be a surprise to come into the room when there's almost a shootout happening and to stir shit up. But tell them, well, it's not even before that. She tells them that Schmidt is a cop because he has just confessed that to her.
Yeah.
So that's why everything goes south. And that's kind of like script-wise, I understand that device, but it means feeding someone drugs metaphorically who never would do it, which is weird.
Yeah, it's, as I said, I don't think it's her best character. I don't think it's her best role, and it's driving the story in the wrong way. Does that make sense? Like, there's things that happen in the movie that didn't need to necessarily happen in the way that they did, but it was like we have to get from A to D, but we don't actually know how to get there, so we'll just make this thing happen so we can get there.
And how about in the end, at the ambulance, where they kiss? She kisses him mostly, but she knows he's a cop, that he's quite a lot older. And he is kissing a high school student there. Yeah,
it's a bit uncomfortable, isn't it? It's funny though, because it is that, like, because one of the things I defend this film for is the whole this it's really funny because actually recently I've been going down a rabbit hole on Never Been Kissed being an awful film.
Haven't seen it yet, but I would like to see it at some point. The Drew Barrymore film.
Yeah, where she goes back to high school and her teacher falls in love with her, even though she's like an undercover student. And it's like, this is objectively terrible. Like, it's objectively, like, on that point, you're like, there's nothing redeemable that's going on in this film.
No.
Watching 21 Jump Street is like, kind of like a palate cleanser for me, because it's like, it takes that uncomfortableness and goes like, yeah, this is wrong. This is completely wrong. The kiss at the end, I mean, it is more of a she kisses him, and listen to me try to defend this in a very uncomfortable manner. I do feel it is part of the satire, though, as well, is that, you cannot escape the tropes of a returning to high school movie. Where you cannot escape those tropes. These tropes are going to happen. And one of the tropes is someone overage is going to kiss someone underage. It happens in every single one of these high school movies. I'm even going to rip apart my movie. How uncomfortable are you now watching Big? You know, he's a 13-year-old in the body of a 30-year-old who has sex with a 30-year-old.
Yes.
And you go like, oh, well, they're in the bodies of 30-year-olds. No. There is literally no justification for what happens in that. He is mentally immature.
Yes.
Right. And she knows this. And yet she goes ahead with it. It's uncomfortable watching it. And this is one of the tropes of these age swaps, return to high school, is that there's for some stupid reason in all these movies, there has to be a moment where someone overage has to do someone underage. And so for me, that part of the movie is like, is it uncomfortable? Yes. Are they satirizing these types of movies? Also, yes. So do they have to have this moment? Yes. Do they have to have this moment? No. Like it's such a strange one, because I'm going like, you know, this is their moment to break that sort of trope. And they choose not.
No, exactly. They could have just had her just take away, oh, this feels like kissing my dad, or something like that. Turn it into a. I'm not going to say that I'm going to want to write their jokes for them, even though there will be a part of this podcast where I will try to give you some improvements and try to convince you, let's do it this way, but this is not it. But there are options. There
are other options. I hate you for bringing up this part, because I knew you would. And you're right. It does break what they were trying to do with the film a little bit. But yeah, it's how do I feel about it? It's annoying. I'm going to say it's annoying. That's the best way I can put it, because it shouldn't. They could have done better.
There is one thing that I haven't addressed yet that I did say in my Lego Movie episode, which is that I've never seen a Lord and Miller directed thing that I have enjoyed, and that's 2 Lego movies and 2 Jump Street movies.
Oh, really?
I haven't seen Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
I love Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Okay, maybe that will be the one. Yeah. And I would have loved to see their take on Solo, even though I'm not a fan of theirs.
100%.
It's just such an intriguing thing that never happened.
If we can talk about the Solo thing for a second, I agree with you. I would have loved to have seen their take on it. And I think there's definitely aspects of you can see in the film that was actually put out. But I also understand Disney's reasoning for then maybe going with Ron Howard. Solo is a movie I will defend to death now, and it was a movie that I was completely wrong on.
Okay,
it was a movie I refused to see because I was just like, it's going to be terrible. This, that, and the next thing, it's not needed. Blah blah blah. And then I watched it and went, oh, this is a fun heist film.
Yeah, the heist scenes are the best ones.
This is a really fun heist film based in the Star Wars universe. This is fun. Yeah. And I've watched it multiple times, and every time I've watched it going, I'm having a lot of fun watching this movie. And if you look at the movies that came out, the 5 movies that came out in that period, where it was the sequel trilogy, Rogue One and Solo, the movies I enjoy the most out of it are Solo and Rogue One. Like, they are so much more fun than the sequel trilogy.
I do like the Last Jedi.
Calling Rogue One fun is a stretch.
Weird.
Yeah, because it's not fun. It's an incredible war movie. But it's like, I enjoyed those movies more than I enjoyed the sequel trilogy. So sorry, I just wanted to, just to come back on that. It would be interesting to see what that Christopher Lord and Miller would have done with that. Yeah. But yeah. I've got to ask about Spider-Verse. They produced that one as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Phil Lord also co-wrote Into the Spider-Verse.
Yep.
That was good. Have them write stuff. They're good at it. I'm not going to say they're perfect at it, but if someone else is there directing it and taking out some of that bullshit, then I'm fine with it. Yeah.
Okay. The only other thing I'm sticking on the Lord and Miller thing because I love Lord and Miller. I like their stuff. So I was going to say there's one other thing that Lord and Miller that I'd recommend is the After Party, which is
haven't seen it yet.
Executive produced by Lord and Miller, but it's actually Christopher Miller himself who's done all the directing on it. So Phil Lord's actually not involved with it beyond being an executive producer. Miller's actually the director on it. So it's one storyline told from the perspective of several different characters. So you've got 8 episodes, and each episode is from the perspective of a different character. And the story is told as you go. There's a storyline that goes all the way through it, and they revisit this one scene, this one incident. But it's all done in different styles. So you've got like an action movie, you've got a musical, a psychological thriller, an animation. It's all really fun and very interesting.
But if there's one thing they really do know, it's their tropes, their movies, their what happens in them.
And that's why I like 21 Jump Street so much, because it plays on so many of those tropes. You know, it did it right. I think so that's what I like. After Party is something that I would recommend because I really enjoyed it. So again, because you say those tropes, they play on it so well.
I'm Brian, and so is this podcast.
Dave Franco. Interesting role he plays in this movie, but what interested me most watching it this time is that he just has one of the most punchable faces ever, and he's very good at playing assholes. And even though he's usually king asshole, he still couldn't hold up a stick to Schmidt and Jenko in this movie for me.
So do you know what's really funny? I've recommended that TV show to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's in there. I know. Yeah,
he's in that.
Yeah,
and he plays an asshole.
Mm-hmm. And he's also an actor who's turned into quite a interesting director.
Do you know? Because obviously he's the brother of James Franco, and
he's married to Alison Brie.
Yeah, he's an interesting one because obviously all the attention is on his brother, right? You know, and he's kind of always just been on the sidelines to a degree. I actually kind of prefer what he does versus James Franco. Do you know? Do you know what I mean? Yes, he does play a lot of assholes, and he does have a very punchable face when he's an asshole. And the biggest asshole part, well, I'll actually give him is season 9 of Scrubs. But I think only he could have done the role that he's done. Like he could have played this role. Yeah. Like I actually can't. I can see a lot of other people playing the other roles in 21 Jump Street. Okay, the only 2 actors that I couldn't replace would actually be him and Ice Cube. I think Ice Cube's playing himself.
Yeah,
which
apparently even Jonah Hill thought of that role with Ice Cube in mind.
Yeah, exactly. I can't see you replacing either Dave Franco or Jonah Hill. Dave Franco's an interesting one. I think he actually does a very good job in this film, and I think he's playing to type, which he is an asshole,
but he has embraced his type and in a good way.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I like a lot of what he does with Schmidt and Jenko both being assholes, but not really knowing it. Dave Franco is an asshole and he knows it.
I would say so. There was talk in recent years, especially with the joke at the end of 22 Jump Street, where they go to 23, 24 and stuff like that. All the sequel things.
Yeah.
There was real talk of maybe doing a crossover between the Jump Street
Men in Black
and Men in Black.
Well, that was part of the Sony leaks, wasn't it? Man, like... So first of all, as part of the Sony leaks, now Sony as an entertainment company, they don't have the best track record.
No.
They've got a lot of amazing IP on their hands, and they don't do a lot of good with it. You know, let's look at the Spider-Man movies for a start, right?
Are you on board for Venom Let There Be Carnage or not?
Let's just forget that movie exists, okay? And like the only good thing, like the first 2 Spider-Mans with Tobey Maguire were good. The third one was awful. And the third one was awful because the executives were suddenly coming in going, you need to have Venom. You need to do this. You need to do this. You need to do this. No, you can't do what you want. You need to do this. And
Vulture.
Then we had...
No one's heard of him.
Exactly.
Do the Sandman.
The only good sort of Spider-Man film outside of that they've done on their own is Into the Spider-Verse, which is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until they let Spider-Man be part of the MCU where Spider-Man actually became good. And actually, we've now had 3 good Spider-Man films, which is unbelievable after what we've had. Mm-hmm. And again, there's a lot of things that Sony have, and you just go, what are you doing? And the whole Sony leaks thing, like it felt like I was reading a lot of them going like, their approach to movie making is let's throw at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
And it does feel like the Men in Black Jump Street crossover is literally that. Like, it's like literally like, would this, like we've got this successful Men in Black series, which is not successful. Like, it's like Men in Black has a very good first film. Men in Black is very good. Men in Black 2, not so good, but still fine. It's perfectly fine. Yeah. Men in Black 3 actually is quite good.
Okay, I haven't seen it yet.
It's the time travel one. It's actually pretty good. All right. And then we're not going to talk about International.
Please, let's not.
We're not going to talk about it because they went, oh, those two had really good chemistry in Ragnarok. Let's put them together again. Oh, no. So it's a terrible film. It's objectively. They've ran that franchise into the ground, and they've gone like, well, we've got the 21 and 22 Jump Street, which are very popular and are very good, and they've done very, very well. Yeah, they did the whole joke thing of 35 Jump Street and stuff like that, and I loved that at the end of 22 Jump Street. But Men in Black 20 and Jump Street crossover, no, we don't need that. We don't need that. Do you know what really killed satire movies was the whole... And I say this with love in my heart.
Okay, I'm interested. I'm really curious to what you have to say now, but I'm sort of prolonging it to make it even sweeter to hear what you have to say. So there's a suspense and anticipation.
I say this with love in my heart because there is the first 2 of these series I actually quite like, and that is Scary Movie. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the first 2 in the Scary Movie franchise, I go like, actually, these are fine. These are fine. They're not as good as your Hot Shots Part 2 and stuff like that, but they were actually quite a lot of fun. They satirized popular culture at the time, having the, and it's quite funny because Scream itself was a satire on horror movies. So it's quite funny having a satire of a satire. I quite enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. The problem with then, it was like the success of Scary Movie then led to your Not Another Teen Movie, Epic Movie, this movie, that movie. And that period of time was like, what was that? That was like the 2000s.
Yeah. Very much like, 2000s, yeah.
Yeah, the 2000s version of satire was killed satire for me because it was just like, it was so obvious. It was so there was no subtlety to the humor, and so there was no.
Okay, I haven't. When you started talking about satire at the top of the episode, I didn't go into this yet, but I would say that there's sort of a distinction between satire and parody.
Yeah, they were parody movies. Yeah,
yeah. Even though 21 Jump Street, I do see that you can call that a satire. Because it's not one or the others. Oftentimes, there's a lot of mixing. If Mel Brooks is known for his parodies, but I would say that he's even a better satirist than a parodyist.
100%, 100%. And this, but I'm going to agree with you on this point.
This is something from the high point of parody movies, and I've never been a fan of both the first 2 parts of Scary Movie. The second one, even less than the first one. I am a fan of Not Another Teen Movie, which I thought was quite clever. And then anything after that, I haven't even bothered because the trailers are already so just cheap shots stitched together.
Epic Movie was the first movie I ever walked out of within the first 15 minutes. Yeah, it was just so bad.
And disaster movie, and I just don't want.
And that's the thing. Like, I think. It's actually a very good point that you bring up about sort of satire versus parody. There's a very fine line between them. It's a movable line, and the best movies of those 2 genres will move between them effortlessly. Effortlessly. Again, I'm going to bring up Hot Shots Hot Shots goes between satire and parody so often. It satirizes the American military-industrial complex so very well, but then does it in a parody way.
Disguised as a simple parody movie with cheap shots at Rambo and stuff like that.
100%.
And Top Gun, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, that's very good. And I think we went through the 2000s where it was simple parody and they lost the satire, they lost the subtlety in what they were doing. And that's why I like 21 Jump Street. I call it a satire film, but yeah, it's parody as well. It is definitely parody. But I think it does skirt between the two very, very well. And it's like, again, Lord and Miller, I put into that sort of category of Dan Harmon, of Edgar Wright as well, of filmmakers who were very good at playing on the tropes of these films and have created very good parody and satire films. Look at Hot Fuzz, for example.
Also, they're all very good at sort of having that cake and eating it too, at making a parody of something, but still being good at being that kind of movie as well, which is often a sign of a very good parody. Yes,
exactly. Yeah.
I'm gonna go into the improvement that I had thought of.
Improvementazio.
And this is something that could never have happened in 2012, but I'm still gonna propose it because in hindsight, this to me would have been a better idea. 21 Jump Street, well, first there was already a script and then Jonah Hill took it over and did a script together with another guy. The other one was more the guy who wrote the script.
Fact check Norris.
Fact check Norris here. Michael Bacall wrote the screenplay, but he also shares story credit with Jonah Hill. He was also a writer on Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and Project X. And you might also know him as an actor. He played one of the privates on Inglourious Bastards. Fact check Norris out. Jonah Hill was the main pusher of this story idea. And they also had some script work from Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg of, amongst other things, Superbad fame.
Yeah.
In which Jonah Hill obviously was one of the lead characters. In which he does do the geeky type in a way that I do get enamored with.
I will actually give you that. He's a lot better in Superbad.
So then, after shopping around for directors, Jonah Hill even wanted Rob Zombie to direct it.
Now that would have been a movie. That would have been an experience.
I would have liked to see that as well. But still, in hindsight, if you've seen mid-90s, I really like Jonah Hill as a director there. And not because he's doing art house very well, but because he does know how to make certain types of people who are maybe even a bit toxic, also vulnerable and interesting. So that is a good sign for me that he might be able to mix images and sounds in a way that I would... And he's a funny guy. To be honest,
seen mid-90s yet.
Okay, it's good, but it's way more dramatic, like tragic comedy, and very much a coming-of-age story. Young skaters in the 90s. And on the other hand, I'm not a big fan of the direction of Lord and Miller, but I do like their writing often enough. So my proposition would be to switch them over. In 2012, this could never have happened.
No.
Because Jonah Hill didn't have the status to be able to direct anything. And Midnight was such a low-budget movie that he could never have done something like 21 Jump Street, which is quite a high-budget movie, several years before he even conceived of mid-90s. But if we could have had it, I would have liked to see that.
I'm just going to come back to Superbad for a second. I hated Superbad the first time I saw it.
Really?
I really didn't like it.
I was expecting not to like it, and that was the one where I was going, oh, this is really good, actually.
No. So I didn't like it the first time I watched it. Now, the first time I watched it, I was going like, they're just doing American Pie again, and they've already done American Pie. And then I rewatched American Pie, and I was like, well, this hasn't aged well. And this has got a lot of issues. And then I watched Superbad and I went, this is going to age brilliantly.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, this is actually really funny. And I actually, once I got off my high horse of it's just a copy of American Pie and I watched it for what it was, I was like, this is actually really good. And actually, as I said, it already has aged better than American Pie. It holds truer than American Pie ever will. But for me, one of the highlights was Jonah Hill. Everyone talks about McLovin, but I always thought Jonah Hill was the character that, as you said there, his character. Jonah Hill's been incredible in pretty much everything that he's done. Like even 21 Jump Street, he plays an asshole, and I don't like his character. Like I've established now at the end of this chat that we've had, I don't like his character anymore. But actually, the fact that he can do that character in the way that he did actually shows you how good he is. I mean, look at Wolf of Wall Street, which is. Not Wolf of Wall Street. I've got a very troubled history with, like a troubled opinion of. It's an objectively brilliant film. Like as a film, it's fantastic. The fallout of that film from the people who just don't understand what that film is doing.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like. But like, yeah, he's consistently shown that he is a fantastic actor. So I have no doubts that he should be a good director because he's shown that he knows how to deliver a character. Like the best actors who've become directors have always played fantastic characters of a good range of characters. So, you know, I have no doubts that he would be good. So I'm going to have to see Mid-90s. Lord and Miller's writing is so strong. Like they know how to write, and they know how to do that meta humor that's really, really good within the writing. So yeah, no,
it's also a very personal thing because I think that when they are the directors, they just push certain character things too far for me, where I don't like people anymore, and they lose me. And they lose me quite quickly.
This is probably what Disney saw in Solo.
Might be, yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. But no, I as a change, I'd be game. I'd be totally up for seeing that. I think that would be quite an interesting thing to see.
And I also asked you for 3 movie recommendations for
the
listeners.
So it's interesting because I was like, what do I go with the movie recommendations? Do I go with the humor and the satires and the parodies that I do love? I do love them. But I'm actually going to go for 3 movies that have really, over the last few years, have like moved me. I'm going to give you one that I did not expect whatsoever and was an accidental viewing. I'm going to give you one that surprised me. And I'm going to give you one that, again, I didn't know what to expect from it.
Tip 1!
So the first movie I'm going to recommend is Room, 2015's Room, not Tommy Wiseau's The Room, but bringing back Brie Larson. Room is an absolute journey of a film. Like, I didn't mean to go see it. I had a Cineworld unlimited pass and I was like just going to see movies and there was nothing. I was like, I haven't heard of this. I'm going to go see it. Whatever. Me and my now wife at the time, we saw a trailer for it and we thought it was going to be one thing because it's based on a book and we hadn't read the book. We hadn't heard of the book and we thought it was going to be one thing and it turned out to be something completely different from what we were expecting. But that somehow was so much better and it was moving and it was wonderful and the directing in it is phenomenal.
Tip 2!
The other one I'm going to recommend is actually a sequel. And it's T2 Trainspotting, the second Trainspotting film. It was such a surprising film. It was... I was very worried about it. I was like, Trainspotting for me as a Scot is such a, when you're born, you're given a bottle of Iron Brew and a copy of Trainspotting. Like everyone knows Trainspotting, and it was such a cultural event of a film. And I'm going to be controversial here, but I think in many ways the second Trainspotting is actually a better film.
That is a big statement.
It's a big statement. I think, don't get me wrong, I think overall the first Trainspotting film is better. Of course it is. And I think it captures the energy of a time. But I also think the second Trainspotting film does that as well, and it does it in a very subtler way. And I think there are better character moments in Trainspotting 2 than there are in Trainspotting. It is absolutely fantastic, and I think
I really loved it as well.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad.
Tip 3.
The last one I'm going to recommend was a very small release, and it was mainly on a streaming service on Apple TV Plus, and it's a movie called Swan Song. Have you seen it?
Not seen it yet. It was with Mahershala Ali, right?
Yeah, he was, again, this man, like, if you put him in anything, I'm watching it, because he is incredible. He's an incredible actor. You could put him in the worst film and I'd still watch it, because I know he's going to do something fantastic. And this film is, look, at times it does stray into a bit of a maudlin film. Like sometimes you're just like, okay, come on. But he raises it in what he does. I'm not going to give too much away about it, but it's a real sort of, it asks a lot of questions about yourself, about mortality, and sort of questions that you would ask yourself, what would you do in this situation? And it's a hard watch. It's a slow watch, but it's a moving watch. What's interesting is that at the end of the movie, nothing happens that isn't unexpected. Like, it goes exactly as you would expect it to go. It's not a movie where you go, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. It's not a M. Night Shyamalan movie, mind-blowing. Yeah, exactly. It's not a mind-blowing movie. What it is I felt like it was a real study into sort of like the emotions of going through something really hard. Does that make sense?
And so we fought and we battled as we beat each other up. Both of us tried hard and we both failed. Yes, I had you by the thumbs, but neither of us won. Only the love for cinema prevailed.
They say is that. Thanks for listening, and thanks again to Rik Carranza for joining in this whole lot of fun. It was good to have you on. Are there any films that I might like to recommend myself, which I've seen in the last 2 weeks? Well, yeah, of course. For one, I have finally watched Kimi, the movie by Steven Soderbergh, which is on HBO Max. It's nicely downscaled because it's a COVID movie, but it also has large overtones of stuff like Rear Window and The Conversation. But Steven Soderbergh wouldn't be Steven Soderbergh if he wouldn't also inject this movie with a lot of interesting ideas as well. Kimi is the name of an Alexa or Siri type device, and he milks that in a good story way, not in a finger-waving, angry and afraid of technology way. And also this movie has a fantastic sound design. Another film I watched is some more good old-fashioned, very depraved horror fun. The newest edition in the Evil Dead franchise, Evil Dead Rise. Deadites tear away at the family structure of a poor family living in a rundown apartment building in a big city. It has familiar elements and new ones, and they just knew how to make it work on its own merits. It's kind of sadistic to its own lead characters, like the previous installments were, but once it's going, it's really going hard. Anyway, so this was a cinema production presented and edited by me, Ruud, the 20ste Eeuwse Vos, with those fine jingles by the genius Roy Grutters. This podcast is made possible by the support of my patrons, Casey the Great, Onno Lubbers, the Holy Saint Niels Timmer, Martijn van Koolwijk, and Mike van Dooyeweert. Would you also like to become a patron? Please visit patreon.com/duimpjeworstelen. You can also find us on social media on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Letterboxd. And if you have some fine, steaming, hot hate mail, please send it to me through duimpjeworstelen@gmail.com. I thank you very much in advance. All right, that's it for this time, and we'll see you again in about 2 weeks. See you then. Okay, bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, could we have an enormous round of applause, please, for our host, who has once again succeeded in bringing to us a plethora of top-notch, cinematographically themed entertainment. We have had an absolute ball, have we not? Next time on Thumb Wrestling.
Ik zag van Inherent Vice zag ik de trailer voordat ik naar Birdman ging van Iñárritu.
Ja.
En ik vond die trailer echt fantastisch. En dat ik echt eigenlijk baalde van, oh ja shit, nu moet ik eigenlijk naar Birdman gaan. Maar ik wil eigenlijk veel liever naar Inherent Vice gaan. Die volgens mij kwam hij een paar weken later of zo.
Mm-hmm.
Maar die trailer vond ik echt fantastisch. En toen, mijn verwachtingen waren misschien ook vrij hoog. Maar ik ging de film in en ik weet nog wel dat ik naar de zaal uitging en dat ik dacht van, waar heb ik nou precies naar zitten kijken? Ik kon eigenlijk geen touw maar vastknopen.
This podcast employs a strict only like and subscribe if you really want to policy. Okay, bye.